VCAST. And you currently, can you tell me what your current job is here and how long you've been doing it and where we are in this beautiful building?
So I work for Ashridge Executive Education. We're part of a whole international business school. So we're over in the whole campus here in Dubai Internet City.
Okay.
My role is I'm a business psychologist and client director. So I look after a number of our client relationships here in the Middle East. I design some of our leadership development programs, conduct assessment work, do a range of different activities here in the region.
Okay, thank you. So we'll talk more about you and your work with leaders in a moment, and it's a very interesting job you've got. So first of all, I'd like you to just like go back a bit, and I'd like you to think about what was your dream job as a youngster. I was just curious to know what it's got to do with where you are now today. So what was your dream job?
I wanted to be a journalist, a writer.
Right. And what was it about being a writer that you particularly liked or wanted to do? What was inspiring about that for you?
I think I like stories. I like understanding people's stories, understanding kind of the information, being quite creative and actually looking at what's contributed to a story, the various parts around it, the things that led up to the event, what actually came out of it. So I'm quite curious, and I read quite a lot, so I'm always interested in reading other people's stories. So I wouldn't mind writing my own.
Great. And when you think about that, those particular things that interest you, how do those actually relate to the work that you do now? When you think about you work with leaders now, how do you engage with those talents and strengths that you might have had doing that? How does that relate to where you are now?
I think to engage leaders, you have to really want to understand their story, understand where they've got to and what contributed to it. Everyone has a story behind it, and often it's the ability to make sense of that and the critical incidents that have experienced a leader's experience that shaped their career.
Okay.
And also, I guess, like when I work with high potentials and younger leaders, you're always interested into what types of experiences do they need to have in order for them to fulfill their potential.
Okay, well, let's just stop there. We'll come back to those leaders. You were talking about critical experiences. And what interests me, because I think you're right, people are shaped by the critical experiences that happen in their lives, or important, or deep, or whatever they happen to be, or significant. So I'm just curious, what's a significant event in your life that shaped who you are and what you do, maybe?
I used to do a lot of martial arts when I was growing up. I grew up in North London, so my mum put me to go and do a martial arts class. I did taekwondo, and to be fair, I wasn't very good at it. I found it quite difficult. It was really challenging and stretching, and it just wasn't natural for me. You know, some people, they say, oh, that's natural, I can do that. I'm naturally good at football, I'm naturally good at creative, I'm naturally artistic. For me, I wasn't naturally good at martial arts. I was really terrible. So I learned over time that the more effort you put into something, the often better you can get, and that perseverance and hard work and dedication actually overcomes talent sometimes. You can have that natural talent but not want to work hard at things. And it brought me into university in good stead, and I did my black belt grading. It was tough, and I got to a level where I realised that you don't just get confident about something. You don't just acquire it. For most normal people, you get those people that have that kind of super level of confidence, that kind of unshaking self-assurance. But for most of us, and for most leaders, confidence comes over time. It comes with experience and hard work and a bit of grit and a few mistakes. And I learned that from kind of doing the martial arts and not being very good at something.
Interesting. You didn't give up either. You were just very persistent about it.
And there's a lot of stuff like kind of, as I said, I read quite a lot. You read Malcolm Gladwell's book, David and Goliath. It talks about the underdogs, and that's quite interesting in leadership. If you look at real cases of successful leadership, it's often like through a lack of things being harder and being more challenging and more difficult, especially in entrepreneurs.
Interesting. I'm reading the same book at the moment, so it is very good indeed. It is. So, how did you actually get into, the role that you're in now in terms of, your studies? You said you went and studied psychology at university. What caused you to study that?
I was quite interested in people as well, so people's stories and human behaviour.
Right.
I was good at it as well. Like, it was something that I worked hard at college. I got better at it, and then I thought it would be an interesting thing to study, and I actually chopped and changed, because when I finished uni I wanted to be a clinical psychologist, so I worked in psychiatric hospitals, and then a forensic psychologist working in prisons. But the key thing I was really interested in was human behaviour, so kind of understanding why people do what they do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then what made you transition into like the roles that you do as well? Working with Ashridge for the last 6 years.
I think I was really interested in organisations from a positive perspective, how you can make people better. So the people that I have the honour of working with are already quite senior or successful in their organisations. And often it's a few tweaks or a few changes in their own style or what they may do that allow them to become even more effective. And that's quite interesting. It's quite different to working with offenders, for example, in the prison service, where it required a lot of effort on both of our sides to allow that change. And it was quite difficult because it was very difficult to make long-term change. Whereas with organisations, you can actually see the tangible benefits of what you're doing. And that's really interesting for me.
So you've worked with, how many leaders? You worked with leaders at a very senior level, and you've worked with, you mentioned to me in another conversation, you like working with high potentials. I mean, how many leaders have you actually worked with?
Probably a few hundred in different guises, through coaching or through assessment work or through development programs or through kind of even some consultancy work we do, or talking at conferences and hearing from leaders. And hearing from leaders that are kind of well established in their career, as well as learning from people that you can see have the potential to be those leaders of tomorrow.
So I'm sure you had your favourites in terms of the leaders and people that have really made their mark, and you thought, wow, that's a really inspiring leader, or they've inspired you anyway, maybe others as well. What do you think are the characteristics of an inspiring leader from your perspective? Well,
one leader that I had the experience of working with was I was on a development program with a very experienced guy, and he had a self-assurance in terms of his decision making. I think it was one of the characteristics where you don't always feel like you have to make a decision as a leader. I think leaders are pushed just to know all the answers and make decisions, but the actual ability to reflect and think things through, especially now decisions that leaders make are quite complex and ambiguous, and there's lots of change going on in the world. So actually a leader's ability to step and hold the tension and say, you know what, we don't actually need to decide, we need to think, we need to gather in more information. That's really important to me, and that's what I'm bringing into my own practice.
Okay.
And also...
what are the characteristics are there in an inspiring leader?
Humility. We talk about inspirational leadership or charismatic leadership, and I think it's as important to have that sense of humility and for a leader to be able to go and understand what's going on in any parts of their organisation and want to listen to different people and actually understand that the different parts of the organisation and what makes the organisation work. Not just focus up at the C-suite or with their own teams, but actually explore more broadly.
And what have I was going to ask you, I think we'll ask you about what you've learned from inspiring leaders that you bring into your own work, and you've almost shared that anyway. But how do you know, you've mentioned a couple of characteristics that are inspiring leaders. What's the impact of those characteristics that you can honestly say, I work with these leaders, and these leaders are the most successful, not just in terms of the results they produce, but in terms of themselves as whole human beings and the way in which they lead.
Sure.
Is there a direct correlation between those things that inspire you and the humility, etc., and the ability to hold the space before making a decision? Does that make a leader more successful?
Yeah, it depends on how you define success, right?
How do you define success?
I don't know. I think it's you could look at the leader because of what they do and how they deliver results, or you could look at it more about who they are.
Yeah.
And I think it's a combination of both. I think successful leadership requires people to follow and resonate with you. So often you can measure leadership through their own performance, but all the performance of the people around them. Yeah. And a successful leader should be building followers and building successors, right? So I think that's a good way of actually saying, okay, if you look at a leader and their legacy, if they're moving on from an organisation in the later parts of their career, what are they leaving behind in terms of their own style, their own legacy, what kind of leadership approach that was successful in the organisation? Do people actually take that on and follow them?
That's very good. So, what type of leadership? I mean, you're Gen Y.
Yeah.
And what type of leadership inspires Gen Y?
you kind of, as a Gen Y, you want someone that's going to listen to you rather than sort of tell you completely what to do. That autocratic style just doesn't work anymore. You want people that appreciate and understand your point of view and take that on. But you also want clear direction, but you want more of a coaching style. You kind of want someone to come alongside you and develop you and be interested in your development, and give you opportunity. Because for me, if and for most Gen Y that we work with, you kind of think, you know what, I don't want to make those kind of big lateral kind of moves up the organisation over years and years and years. I want things a bit faster. I want the variety, and we have those opportunities now to change and connect and do different things. And successful leaders should give up that space.
Yes.
Give you the example. I was working at Ashridge in the UK, and I had the opportunity to come out here. That's a real kind of inspirational thing. It kind of gives you a new role, a new job, and you can learn again. I think learning as well, like Gen Y want to learn, and they really want those opportunities to learn, and they don't want to be kind of held back from that.
Thinking about the future, there's a quote by Abraham Lincoln who's quoted as saying, anyway, the best way to predict the future is to create it. Now, Gen Ys are creating the future, obviously are the future. So I'm just curious, what are your predictions for the future in terms of future leaders?
I think future leaders need to be much more comfortable with technology. The world of work is changing. We have new technology all the time disrupting different industries, and they have to know what kind of the new entrants and new technology that's going to come into their market. They also have to understand that there's things happening and developments happening that are going to fundamentally change the way we do things. You look at machine learning, driverless cars, that type of stuff. Leaders in every organisation need to take that into account. If you look at here in Dubai and Sheikh Mohammed and the Dubai government, they're really on track and thinking about what driverless cars will look like. They're sort of saying, in this amount of time, 25% of the cars in Dubai will be driverless. So they're thinking ahead. A successful leader needs to look to tomorrow. And they also need to be able to manage uncertainty and ambiguity and respond. So it's not like they can solve puzzles or problems. They can't just put pieces together, right? They actually need to be very good at facing like those dilemmas and choices and saying, we could go this way, we could do this. And they have to learn that quite quickly, and because some of the organisations might be facing situations they've never faced before.
Okay. So I imagine that you've probably got, I'm interested in you sort of sharing one of your thoughts or one of your quotes. I asked you if you could, bring one along and just sort of share that with us and what's important to you about that quote. Would you mind just reading that quote?
It's on the background of my phone. I use it quite a lot. So it's
and where's it from?
It's from Winnie the Pooh, which is a Disney cartoon, very very old one actually. You're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. And it's something that Winnie the Pooh said to Christopher Robin, his best friend, and it's really, really something that, I don't know, I've always kind of resonated with, even when I hear it over and over again. So I can tell you a little bit as to why, if you want.
Good, why not? Just briefly.
Yeah, I guess it's for me, you don't have, as I said before when we were speaking, leadership isn't in anyone's job title. Okay, you have chief executive, you have manager of this, you don't have leader of. You can develop leadership capability or be a leader in any position in any organisation. And often it comes without even knowing. People listen and resonate with you, and they follow, and you take on feedback as you are following someone else. So it's a cycle, right? And the idea is you're braver or smarter or kind of more confident than you actually believe you are to be, because people actually follow you and they listen to you and they come to you for advice. And that's leadership in different ways. It could be with your friends or your workmates. It could be with society, with your colleagues. It could be someone asking you a question about something in your life that you meet in the street. You can have leadership in really different ways, right? And I think some people don't even know that. They don't even know about themselves, that people look to them for leadership.
Thank you. Would you like to read it slowly again, just so we leave
Okay.
this with... Yeah, just
Right.
read it slowly this time.
You're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed, Alex. Really pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
No worries.